All right, dedicated UPSC aspirants, welcome back. It's day 2 of our current affairs deep dive.
Right.
You're picking up where we left off, covering the most important events from January 21st, 2025. Got to make sure you're ahead of the game for your exam prep.
Absolutely. And we've got a lot to cover, a fascinating mix of global and domestic stuff. Everything from the World Bank's take on India's economy to the revival of nuclear energy globally.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. Starting with India, the World Bank just released a report. It's painting a pretty positive picture of our economic future, projecting growth. Even all other countries are, well, facing some headwinds. What are the key factors they're looking at?
Well, a few things stand out. India's service and manufacturing sectors doing exceptionally well. We're also seeing some healthy fiscal indicators. Basically, the government's finances are in good shape. And maybe most importantly, private investment is increasing. That's a big sign of confidence in the Indian economy.
It does sound like a good combination. Strong internal stuff and a favorable external environment. But, for those of us studying for the UPSC, what does this mean for us? Why should we care about these projections?
Think about it this way. This economic stability, it's directly related to government policies and schemes. A strong economy, that's the foundation for social welfare programs, infrastructure development, even India's foreign policy initiatives, understanding these economic trends, crucial for tackling those complex questions
Right.
in the UPSC exam.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the bigger picture, how economic performance shapes the policies. Speaking of things that could impact policy, let's talk about ISRO. They're making some incredible progress with reusable rocket technology. I read they successfully restarted their Vickers engine during a recent test. That's a pretty big deal, right?
Absolutely. This isn't just another test. It's a huge step towards reusable launch vehicles. For ISRO, restarting an engine mid-flight, that's complex, and it's essential for bringing back rocket stages safely.
Oh, I see. So instead of those stages crashing into the ocean, they could land back on Earth, ready to be used again.
Exactly. And that means significant cost savings for each mission, which is, well, it's huge. For a space program as ambitious as India's, it lets ISRO launch more missions, explore further, achieve its goals more efficiently.
Now, this has UPSC question written all over it. How should our listeners be thinking about this for their exam prep?
India's space program, it's a source of pride for the country, a real testament to our technology. For your exams, you got to be well-versed in ISRO's milestones, missions like Chandrayaan and Gaganyaan, and how this new engine tech impacts things moving forward. But don't stop there. Think about the geopolitics. How does this position India in the global space race? What about international collaborations? Space diplomacy? These are the connections that'll make your answers stand out.
See the bigger picture. Connect the dots. Science, technology, geopolitics, all related. Okay, let's shift gears. From the vastness of space to something a bit closer to home. Food. A recent study on global food systems really caught my eye, highlighted both progress and challenges. And it seems like governance is a key factor in determining whether we move towards a sustainable future for food production.
That study is fascinating. They tracked all sorts of indicators: food production, consumption, distribution. Some good news,
Right.
like access to clean water and vegetable availability, but also some worrying trends. Things like food price volatility, government accountability, even civil society participation. Those have declined.
So we're making progress on the ground, but maybe struggling with the bigger picture.
A powerful way to put it. The study makes it clear. Strong governance is essential for stable food prices, promoting sustainable agriculture, ensuring food security for everyone. Not just a theory, it has real consequences, especially in a country as vast as India. For you, the key takeaway is this. Why is governance so crucial in this context? What failures lead to problems? What would successful governance look like? Those are the questions the UPSC loves.
So fascinating how these seemingly different topics, space and food, come back to governance, its impact on society, really shows how interconnected these issues are.
Exactly. And speaking of interconnectedness, nuclear energy, it's been generating a lot of buzz. The IEA, the International Energy Agency, just released a report, suggests a global resurgence in interest in nuclear power. What are your thoughts?
I was surprised, honestly. Isn't nuclear power still a bit controversial? I mean, the safety debates, waste disposal, those huge upfront costs, it's a lot.
It absolutely is. The IEA report acknowledges those concerns. But here's the thing. The world's facing a dual challenge: meeting growing energy demands and reducing carbon emissions to fight climate change. Nuclear energy, despite its drawbacks, It's increasingly seen as a viable option, especially with new tech like small modular reactors.
SMRs.
Yeah,
SMRs. I've heard the term. Not entirely sure what they are.
Yeah.
You break it down for our listeners. Why are they generating so much excitement?
Imagine a nuclear reactor, but smaller, more flexible, potentially even safer than those massive plants. That's the idea. They can be deployed faster, less upfront investment, and they might even address some safety concerns. Most importantly, they could be a game changer for emerging markets, looking to expand their energy capacity without relying on fossil fuels.
Interesting. So it's not just about replacing old plants. It's about new possibilities for countries that might not have considered nuclear before. But the concerns remain. Safety, waste disposal, costs. What should our UPSC aspirants keep in mind when analyzing this?
Nuclear energy is a classic UPSC dilemma, weighing the pros and cons of a powerful technology. For your exam prep, you need a multifaceted understanding. The basic science, the economics, the geopolitics of nuclear energy as a power source, even the ethical dilemmas, waste disposal, potential accidents. Remember, the UPSC isn't asking you to pick a side. They want to see you analyze, present a well-rounded perspective, articulate the various arguments.
Show your critical thinking skills and the ability to handle those nuanced debates, which, let's be honest, is what the UPSC exam is all about. Okay, before we move on to other global events, there's some significant news for India on the international stage. BRICS is expanding. Nigeria just joined as a partner country. What does this mean for India, and how should our listeners connect this to their exam preparation?
It's significant for a few reasons. First, it strengthens BRICS, gives it more influence globally, a more powerful voice. Second, for India specifically, new avenues for collaboration with Nigeria, a major player in Africa. Trade, investment, security. Think about it. India's foreign policy goals, its engagement with these big organizations, and its growing presence in Africa. How does this partnership fit into India's overall strategy? What are the potential benefits, economic and strategic? These are the questions you should be asking yourselves.
It's fascinating to see how these seemingly isolated events, from the World Bank's economic projections to ISRO's tech to the expansion of BRICS, all contribute to India's evolving position on the world stage.
Absolutely. And speaking of developments back home, let's look at the surge in donations through electoral trusts. It follows that controversial Supreme Court decision on electoral bonds, raises some important questions about transparency and accountability of political funding in India.
This has been in the headlines for a while. Doesn't seem like there's an easy answer. What should our listeners focus on to understand this, especially for the UPSC exam?
Electoral reforms and political funding. Always hot topics for the UPSC. You need to be familiar with the electoral process, the roles of institutions like the Election Commission and the Supreme Court, the arguments for and against various funding mechanisms. This surge in donations through electoral trusts highlights the debate around transparency and the influence of money in politics. The key for you is to understand the different perspectives, the legal frameworks, the potential impact on the integrity of India's democratic processes.
Go beyond the headlines. Really dive into the nuances. Okay, let's shift gears again from domestic politics to something a bit more action-packed. India is participating in a major naval exercise, La Perouse. It involves several other countries, the U.S., France, Australia. What's the significance of this, especially with the Indo-Pacific region becoming so strategically important?
It's a clear demonstration of India's commitment to maritime security cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, a crucial region. For global trade, security, geopolitical dynamics, you need to understand how this fits into India's strategic objectives. What are the security concerns in the Indo-Pacific? How does India's participation contribute to regional stability? What about India's relationships with key players? The U.S., France, Australia. These are the connections that will deepen your understanding of India's role in this complex and dynamic region.
It's amazing how these events, electoral reforms, naval exercises, all point to a larger theme. India's growing global influence and its efforts to navigate a multipolar world.
You've hit the nail on the head. And as we delve deeper into today's current affairs, we'll continue to explore this theme and unpack the events that are shaping India's trajectory on the world stage. Stay tuned.
Now let's switch gears a bit. Dive into something that blends India's cultural heritage with contemporary initiatives. The Ministry of Mines, they've set up a special exhibition at the Sun Temple in Konark, Odisha. That's an interesting combination.
Yeah.
What's the thinking there? Showcasing the Ministry of Mines at a historical site.
It's a clever way to highlight the connection between India's natural resources, its industrial development, and, of course, its cultural heritage. The Sun Temple itself, it's incredible, a marvel of Kellyan architecture, known for its intricate carvings, its grandeur, the symbolism.
I've seen pictures. It's breathtaking. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right?
It is. And for you, our dedicated UPSC aspirants, this is a prime example of how art and architecture reflect India's history, its cultural diversity. It's not just about appreciating the beauty, it's about understanding it, the symbolism, the historical context, the socio-religious significance.
Right, right. Art and culture are part of the UPSC syllabus, and they often intersect with other topics: history, geography, even economics. Speaking of connecting the dots, let's talk about the SVM to VIA scheme. The Prime Minister recently distributed over 6.5 million property cards under this scheme. What's it all about? Why is it so significant?
This scheme, it's a game changer for rural communities. It uses technology, drones, to map and provide property ownership records to households and villages. For generations, many rural residents, they lacked clear ownership documents for their land, led to disputes, uncertainty. This scheme gives them a legal identity for their property, empowers them to access financial services, resolve those disputes, plan for the future with more confidence.
It's a great example of using technology to solve those long-standing problems, especially in rural areas. For our UPSC aspirants, how does this fit into their exam prep?
Multiple areas of the syllabus: rural development, land rights, the use of technology for governance. You should know the objectives of Vestfalia, how it's implemented, potential impact. Think about the challenges it addresses, the role of technology, and its implications for empowerment in rural India.
It's inspiring to see these ambitious schemes in action, bringing about positive change. Okay, from rural development, let's jump to science. There's a recent discovery that has scientists excited, something called dark oxygen.
Oh, yes. Dark oxygen. This is revolutionary. Imagine oxygen being produced, not through photosynthesis, but by metallic nodules found on the ocean floor.
Hold on. Oxygen without sunlight. That changes everything we thought we knew.
It does. It has huge implications. These nodules, rich in manganese and iron, they can split seawater, release oxygen, even in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean.
That's mind-blowing. What does it mean? The implications. It sounds like science fiction.
The implications are profound.
Right.
First, it challenges how we think about life on other planets. If oxygen can be produced without sunlight, well, maybe there are oxygen-rich environments in places we never considered. Opens up possibilities for finding extraterrestrial life.
Aliens breathing dark oxygen. Wild.
It is. It also makes us rethink the origins of life on Earth. What if oxygen production started way before photosynthesis? It's a whole new chapter in understanding how life began, the conditions on early Earth.
Wow. I see why scientists are buzzing about this. Changes our understanding of fundamental processes. Our UPSC aspirants are probably wondering, how does this connect to their exam?
This could pop up in questions about evolution, the search for extraterrestrial life, even the future of technology. Imagine harnessing this process. Dark oxygen production, implications for space exploration, deep-sea research, maybe even addressing oxygen depletion on Earth.
It's a perfect example of how scientific discoveries do more than just expand our knowledge. They inspire new tech. Okay, let's move from the ocean depths to the digital world. There's a new scheme in India focused on internet governance. Seems pretty relevant these days.
You're talking about the Internet Governance Internship and Capacity Building Scheme, launched by NAXI, the National Internet Exchange of India. It's all about raising awareness, expertise in internet governance among Indian citizens.
Internet governance? Sounds a bit technical. Why should our listeners, especially those studying for the UPSC, care about this?
Because the internet is everywhere. It's how we communicate, do business, learn, govern. But to make sure the internet's benefits are accessible to everyone, that it's used responsibly, we need good governance frameworks. This scheme wants to empower people, help them understand internet policies, cybersecurity, data privacy, the challenges and opportunities of a connected world.
So it's not just about using the internet, it's about understanding how it's managed, regulated, globally.
Exactly. And for those aiming for the IAS, this links to topics like digital literacy, e-governance, India's role in shaping global internet policies. It's about being informed, engaged citizens in a digital world.
It's a good reminder. The UPSC exam isn't just about testing knowledge, it's about thinking critically, about the complex issues facing India and the world. Let's switch gears again, from the digital world to social reform. IIT Bombay is paying tribute to Sri Narayana Guru, a social reformer and spiritual leader from Kerala.
Sri Narayana Guru was a visionary, dedicated to promoting equality, education, challenging the social hierarchies of his time. He championed the idea of one caste, one religion, one God, advocating for social justice, the upliftment of marginalized communities.
His message of unity and equality, incredibly relevant even today. What were some of his key contributions? What should our listeners know about him?
He founded the SNDP, the Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana Yogam, focused on the upliftment and education of the Azava community. He also launched the Aravipunam movement, a big step towards equal rights to temple entry, challenging those caste-based restrictions. And he supported the Vaikom Satyagraha, another landmark movement for temple entry rights, in Travancore. His life, his work, they remind us that individuals can make a huge difference.
It's a powerful story. Highlights the impact of social reform movements in India. For our UPSC aspirants, how does his legacy connect to their exam preparation?
Understanding Sri Narayana Guru, his contributions, his philosophy, his impact, crucial for tackling topics like social justice, religious reform, the evolution of Indian society. His work connects with various themes in the UPSC syllabus. It shows how social movements can challenge the status quo, bring about lasting change.
That's a fascinating example. How history, social reform, even religious philosophy all come together to shape India today. Let's move on to a topic that's vital for a country as vast as India: disaster preparedness. The NDRF, the National Disaster Response Force, just celebrated its 20th Raising Day. 2 decades of service.
The NDRF is vital to India's disaster management. They're the first responders, the brave men and women who rush into disaster zones to save lives, provide relief during floods, earthquakes, cyclones, all sorts of calamities.
They are the heroes, the ones who put their lives on the line to help others. Can you talk more about their role, how they fit into the larger disaster management framework in India?
The NDRF has 16 battalions, drawn from various central armed police forces, the BSF, CRPF, ITBP, highly trained, equipped to handle a wide range of disasters. Search and rescue, medical aid, logistical support. They work under the NDMA, the National Disaster Management Authority, which provides the overall direction for disaster management across the country.
It's good to know we have such a dedicated force ready for any emergency. Disaster management is a big topic for the UPSC. How should they be approaching this in their prep?
It's multidimensional, requires a holistic understanding. You need to know the institutional framework, the NDMA, NDRF, the state disaster management authorities. You need to understand the policies, the strategies, the tech used for preparedness, mitigation, response, recovery. And remember, India is very vulnerable to disasters. So this is an area where your knowledge can really make a difference in the real world.
Absolutely. It's not just about the exam, it's about knowledge that can save lives. Build a more resilient India.
Okay, let's wrap up with a look into the future. The quantum economy. The World Economic Forum, the WEF, released a report highlighting the potential of quantum technologies.
This report, it's a wake-up call for business leaders, policymakers, and of course, our future policymakers. You, the UPSC aspirants. Quantum technologies, quantum computing, sensing, communication, they're poised to revolutionize industries, reshape the global economy.
Quantum computing. Sounds like something out of a movie. Can you explain it? Why is everyone so excited about it?
Quantum computers, they use the principles of quantum mechanics to perform calculations that are impossible for regular computers, even the most powerful ones. They can solve problems that are currently unsolvable. Applications in drug discovery, materials science, financial modeling, even cracking the encryption that protects our online data.
So not just faster computers, a whole new way of computing, solving problems we couldn't even imagine before. Exactly. The WEF report stresses the importance of partnerships, public and private, investments in education, research, and addressing the technological challenges to make this happen, to unlock this quantum potential.
What kind of challenges? What's holding back this quantum revolution?
There are a few hurdles: reducing errors in quantum computers, making them bigger, more affordable, ensuring secure quantum communication, integrating these quantum systems with our existing infrastructure. Big challenges, but not impossible. And the race is on to solve them.
Okay, so for our UPSC aspirants, what's the takeaway? How should they approach this?
The quantum revolution is coming. It's going to change everything. For the UPSC, you need to understand the basics of these technologies, their applications, the economic and societal implications, and India's role in this new landscape. Remember, the UPSC is looking for future leaders who can anticipate and navigate these changes. Quantum technologies are a prime example of that.
It's a fascinating look into the future, and it shows how the UPSC exam is always evolving to reflect the changing world. It really is. And it shows how the UPSC exam is, well, it's more than just memorizing facts. It's about understanding the world and demonstrating critical thinking. Speaking of which, let's move on to something a bit more grounded. I read that the government just approved a new policy framework for offshore wind energy.
That's right. Big step forward for India's renewable energy goals. The policy is all about harnessing the potential of wind energy along our coastline, ambitious targets for offshore wind installations, and incentives for private companies to get involved.
So tapping into a clean energy source,
Yeah.
one that's been, well, largely unexplored in India so far.
Exactly. We focused on onshore wind energy, but offshore offers some advantages. Stronger, more consistent winds, and you can build larger wind farms without competing for land.
Okay, that makes sense. For our UPSC folks out there, how does this fit into India's energy landscape, the bigger picture?
This policy, it's a key part of India's commitment to renewable energy, reducing reliance on fossil fuels. For your exam prep, connect this to a few things. India's national energy policy, the Paris Agreement, and their push for sustainable development. Remember, the UPSC is looking for candidates who can analyze policies, assess their impact, understand how they help achieve national objectives.
It's about seeing the connections, not just the details, how policies impact real life, contribute to India's development. All right, let's shift gears again. Zoom out to a global trend, one that's causing some concern about democracy. I read a report by Freedom House. It paints a pretty grim picture of the state of democracy around the world.
Yeah, that report's definitely a cause for concern. Highlights a decline in democratic freedoms. Globally, authoritarianism is on the rise. Democratic institutions are under pressure. And what's particularly troubling, this trend of democratic backsliding, even in countries with strong democratic traditions.
So it's not just countries that were never democratic. It's countries that were once, considered models of democracy, now experiencing a decline in democratic values.
Exactly. Rising populism, the spread of disinformation, weakening checks and balances. The report points to all of these as contributing factors.
Definitely a crucial topic for UPSC aspirants. How should they be thinking about this global trend in the context of their exam?
It has big implications for international relations, global governance, even India's own democracy. You need to understand the factors driving this trend, the challenges it poses to the international order, the potential consequences for countries like India, and how India is responding. What are they doing to safeguard their own democratic institutions?
Connect those global trends to their potential impact on India. See how India can play a role in promoting democracy globally. Okay, let's bring it back home again. An issue that's been debated in India, the regulation of online gaming. I saw the government is considering new measures to regulate this industry. It's growing so fast.
It's a tough issue. No easy answers. Online gaming in India, explosive growth. But it's raised concerns. Addiction, financial risks, potential for misuse. It's a balancing act.
Finding that balance between letting the industry grow and making sure it's responsible, ethical.
Exactly. The government's looking at different options, clear guidelines for game developers, age verification, promoting responsible gaming practices, things like that.
For our UPSC folks, how does this tie into their prep?
It connects to a few things. Technology policies, social impact, even ethical considerations. Be familiar with the arguments for and against regulation, the challenges of implementing effective controls, the potential impact on the industry, the users. Remember, the UPSC wants to see you analyze, weigh different perspectives, propose solutions.
A real-world dilemma requires that nuanced thinking, that balanced approach. Okay, one last item for today. It highlights the importance of cooperation. Between states and India, I read that 2 states just signed an agreement to resolve a long-standing border dispute.
That's great news. Border disputes have been a source of tension, conflict, for a long time. This agreement shows they're willing to talk, compromise, find solutions everyone can live with.
Diplomacy, cooperation, essential for solving even the most difficult problems.
Absolutely. And for those preparing for the UPSC, it's a case study in interstate relations, conflict resolution, the importance of federalism. Analyze the history of the dispute, the agreement itself, the potential benefits for both states.
A reminder that dialogue is always possible, even when there are differences, finding common ground. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the most crucial events of January 21st, 2025. We covered a lot today. India's renewable energy plans, the global decline in democracy, online gaming, resolving those border disputes. It's been a journey.
We hope you found it informative, engaging. Remember, staying informed, critically analyzing what's happening in the world, crucial for your UPSC preparation.
What stood out to you? What sparked your curiosity? Dig deeper into these issues. Connect the dots. Develop your own informed opinions.
Remember, the UPSC exam isn't about memorization. It's about understanding the complexities of the world, demonstrating your critical thinking, applying your knowledge to real challenges.
And on that note, we wish you all the best in your UPSC journey. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep striving for excellence.